Not a little dirty, filthy. I mean millions of people packed together without modern plumbing, without clean streets, without private bathrooms, all living inside a city that constantly smelled of smoke, sweat, sewage, and wet stone baking under the sun. During summer, the heat became unbearable. Garbage rotted in alleyways. Animals dragged carts through crowded roads covered in mud and waste. Entire apartment buildings leaned over narrow streets so tightly that sunlight barely reached the ground. And somewhere beneath all the noise, the shouting merchants, barking dogs, clanging metal, and arguing crowds, Rome was always sweating. Most Romans lived inside cramped apartment blocks called insulae. Entire families often shared a single dark room with almost no ventilation and almost no privacy. Water had to be carried by hand. Bathing at home was difficult for the poor and inconvenient even for many wealthy citizens. There were no hot showers, no clean white towels, no peaceful bathrooms hidden behind locked doors. So every afternoon, as the city reached its hottest point, people moved toward the public baths. Men went, workers went, politicians went, and Roman women went too. To modern people, that sounds strange. Why would women, in such a strict and reputation-focused society, willingly bathe in public spaces filled with strangers? But in ancient Rome, the bathhouse was not simply a place to wash your body. It was part of daily life itself. The baths were where people relaxed, socialized, negotiated business deals, spread rumors, discussed politics, and displayed status. If you wanted to understand Roman society, you could almost do it entirely by standing inside a bathhouse for a few hours and watching who looked at who. The buildings themselves were enormous. Heated floors warmed giant stone rooms filled with steam and echoing voices. Light poured through high windows onto marble walls and pools of water that reflected the movement of hundreds of bodies at once. Some bathhouses contained exercise courtyards, massage rooms, gardens, libraries, and spaces where food and wine were served. To outsiders, it probably looked luxurious, almost civilized. But underneath the polished marble and soft candlelight, the baths were crowded, loud, humid, and deeply uncomfortable. Thousands of people used the same facilities every day. Sweat mixed with oil. Dirt floated through communal water. Romans cleaned themselves using curved metal tools called strigils, scraping oil and grime directly from their skin before stepping into heated pools. Steam filled the air so heavily that faces blurred together across the room. You could hear conversations echoing through the chambers without even knowing who was speaking. Privacy barely existed there, and for women especially, that mattered. Because once a Roman woman entered the baths, people noticed everything. Her clothes, her jewelry, her skin, her hair, the way she walked, the people she spoke to. Rich women arrived covered in expensive perfume, while poorer women tried to hide worn clothing and cheap fabrics beneath cloaks. Inside the baths, social classes mixed together in ways that rarely happened elsewhere in Roman life. A senator's wife could stand only a few feet away from a servant girl. A struggling family could study how wealthy women dressed, behaved, and carried themselves. The bathhouse became a giant social theater where appearance meant power. And in Rome, appearance could decide your future. Marriage opportunities, social status, political connections, and reputation were all shaped by how others saw you. Roman society constantly watched women, judged women, and discussed women. The baths intensified all of it. Rumors spread quickly there. Affairs began there. Reputations could be strengthened or destroyed there. Even when men and women bathed separately, the bathhouses still acted like giant centers of gossip where everyone observed everyone else. The strange thing is that Romans did not always see this as shocking. The human body was already everywhere in Roman culture. Nude statues filled public spaces. Public bathing had existed for generations. To many Romans, the baths represented civilization itself, proof that Rome was advanced, organized, and powerful. But the reality felt different when you imagine actually standing there, surrounded by noise, surrounded by steam, surrounded by strangers staring through half-hidden faces in crowded rooms where nobody was ever truly alone. Because the Roman bathhouse was never really private. It was public life stripped bare. And for Roman women, entering those baths meant stepping into one of the most socially dangerous spaces in the empire. Because in ancient Rome, bathing was never just about getting clean. It was about being seen,